Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. For this video, we're going to have a look at the new MECOOL KM2 Plus Deluxe Android TV box. Though not as popular as Xiaomi, MECOOL is another of those few Chinese brands that produce Google-certified Android TV boxes. This device has Google Play Protect certification and supports 4K Netflix streaming. If you want to know more about this certification, and why is it important to check when buying these kind of devices, then you may want to also see our previous video about this topic. Anyway, what's special about this particular device is not its certification, but rather its hardware specs, which is higher than most of the available Android TV boxes out there. While most devices only have 2 GB of RAM, this one has 4 GB memory along with 32 GB of internal storage. This is even higher than the more popular Google Chromecast 4K, which only has 2 GB RAM and 8 GB of internal storage. The device also has built-in gigabit Ethernet port and Wi-Fi 6 support, which is again better than most of the other Android TV boxes out there. But as we all know, the hardware is just one side of the story. The software inside is equally important. As per the specs, it currently runs on the older Android TV OS version 11, which is one of our first concerns about this device. On the surface, this sounds like the perfect device, even comparable to NVIDIA Shield Pro specs, but you may want to stick to the end of this video, why we think it might not be the case. The build quality is okay for us. It only comes in white and the top part has a clear transparent acrylic, which is intended to look like glass, with a silver MECOOL branding printed in the center. The front contains 2 LEDs and an IR sensor, 2 USB 2.0 ports and a microSD card slot in one side. And finally in the back, reside a port for IR extension, digital optical port, another for analog audio video, an HDMI port, the gigabit Ethernet, and the DC power port. In the box, you'll find an HDMI cable, the power adapter, and the traditional remote, which unlike most streaming devices out there, still contains dedicated number buttons. And here it is, when compared to a few of the most popular devices we've previously reviewed. The Xiaomi TV Box S 2nd Gen is smaller and sleeker, mainly because of the fewer ports. The MECOOL has 2 more USB ports in the side and a microSD slot, which is convenient for storage expansion. And of course, the Google Chromecast 4K is a lot smaller, being a dongle with a single USB-C port. The build quality and the material of the remotes are quite similar, which is good. We're just not a fan of the multitude of buttons in the MECOOL remote, which makes it unnecessarily wieldy and a little bit too big for a streaming device. It's even more noticeable when compared to the Mi Box remote, which, while longer than the Chromecast remote, is thinner and feels more comfortable in hand. Some people might prefer having more buttons though, especially if they like using shortcut apps such as Button Mapper to map additional functions to those extra buttons. The remote may have its own appeal to some people, which is unlike the minimalist remotes on other devices, may offer more control and customization for users who prefer a more versatile remote experience. The dedicated number buttons are especially useful for users of IPTV apps, as they allow quick channel selection by typing the number directly, eliminating the need to scroll through a long list of channels. This device upgrades to 4 GB of RAM and 32 GB of storage, matching the specs of the new Google TV Streamer 4K. This increase allows for faster performance, more room for apps, games, and media, and a smoother overall experience. When it comes to performance, the processor on the MECOOL KM2 Plus Deluxe is comparable to the one in the Google TV Streamer 4K. Both deliver smooth, reliable streaming and app navigation, handling 4K content without major issues. But where we think the MECOOL KM2 Plus Deluxe really pulls ahead is in its connectivity options. First is the gigabit Ethernet port, a feature that's less common in streaming devices but beneficial for achieving stable, high-speed internet, especially useful for smooth 4K streaming. Additionally, it supports Wi-Fi 6, which offers faster speeds and better stability, making it a good choice for households with multiple devices connected at once. It also comes with 2 USB ports and a microSD card slot, which are uncommon on streaming devices. These ports make a huge difference, allowing you to expand storage easily with a microSD card for apps, media, or even game files. The USB ports are perfect if you want to connect accessories like a keyboard for easier search input, a game controller for Android games, or even an external hard drive to stream local media files directly. These added connectivity options give you a lot more flexibility, transforming the MECOOL from just a streaming device into a more versatile multimedia hub. For anyone who enjoys personalizing their setup or needs extra storage without relying on cloud services, these ports make the MECOOL KM2 Plus Deluxe a stronger option. As solid as the hardware is, now let's move on to the software side, which we think is where things get a bit sticky. As mentioned, the hardware specs are quite impressive, but the software experience has a lot of room for improvement. After a few months of testing this device, we've only seen one update, and that was during the initial setup. For a device that claims to be future-proof, the lack of updates feels disappointing. Without ongoing updates, we're missing out on potential new features, bug fixes, and security patches, which can make the device feel outdated more quickly. This is especially important for anyone who likes to stay current with streaming services or new Android TV features. One of the bigger issues we've encountered is occasional app instability. Certain apps lag or even crash despite the device's generous RAM and storage. It currently runs on Android tvOS version 11, which does its job, but already feels behind since newer devices have moved on to Android tvOS 12 and beyond. This means we're missing out on features like profile switching and enhanced parental controls, features that are pretty useful in multi-user households. So, while it's fully functional as an Android TV box, the experience just feels a bit outdated, and it doesn't give that same seamless feel you get on other devices that are regularly updated. We've also noticed that the voice command functionality is a bit hit or miss. Sometimes it works smoothly, and other times it struggles, which can really disrupt the experience. On more updated devices, voice commands are pretty standard and expected to work well. But here, it's clear that the software optimizations could use some extra polish to make the most of the hardware. In the end, the MECOOL KM2 Plus Deluxe could be a solid choice for specific users. If you prioritize strong hardware specs, local media playback, or IPTV streaming and don't mind the limited software updates, this device has a lot to offer in terms of performance and connectivity. However, if you're looking for a more polished, reliable, and consistently updated streaming experience, other options might be better suited. The new Google TV streamer, which we'll review soon, provides comparable hardware at a similar or lower price point, plus the added advantage of regular updates and Google's direct support. So, if you're curious to see how these devices compare, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to catch our in-depth comparison. Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments if there's anything specific you'd like us to cover in the upcoming video. See you next time.